Welcome to Ask Mike Anything. And I guess I say welcome, but nobody's really here yet. And this is live. So when you get here, welcome. If you come back later and watch, welcome. And I'm just going to double check on the old Facebook here and make sure the sound's coming through. Welcome. There it is. That's me welcoming me. To ask Mike. All right. So you can go ahead and put in the comments any question you might have that you'd like for me to try and answer. Those of you who know me will know that, I have certain areas that I'm more knowledgeable in than others. Yeah. So go ahead, hit me up. Ask Mike anything. Dun, dun, dun. Nothing yet. All right. I do want to say again, I got to preside over a wedding yesterday. Very, very small, but also very fun. And I was very happy to be able to share that with that couple. So congratulations, Beth and Alan. Oh, look, a question from my dad. In your reading Sunday from Luke, Jesus referred to not being a ghost. Does that mean there are ghosts? Well, yeah. If you paid attention to the sermon, I talked about a couple of different ghost stories that we have that are actually in the Bible. The one with King Saul back in the Old Testament. The funny bit about that is at one point Saul drove out all the mediums from Israel. They were hunted down, exiled, some killed, all that kind of stuff. And then in this last act of his life, he wants to hear from God. He knows Samuel is about the only one that can do it, and Samuel is long dead. And so he goes to the medium, and Samuel shows up. And then the transfiguration, the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus is up there with Moses and Elijah. Those are definitely ghost forms, as best we can tell, as best as we know. So yeah, at least to that extent. But it's important. The important piece there is Jesus making sure that they know he's not a ghost. That's kind of theologically important, that Jesus isn't a ghost. But good question. Oh, Michaela is here. Michaela, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Come ask your question. Into the microphone.
So we know that dinosaurs walked the earth before the first human ever did, and yet in Genesis it never says that God created dinosaurs. He went straight from creating the earth to humans. How is this possible?
All right. Why don't you do me a favor and hand me my Bible from right over there? All right. So, this could be fun. Hey, Matt, how are you? All right. So we have the 7 days of creation. God creates the waters. Let's see. Trees, vegetation, light. Where are we? God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky. So God created great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw it was good. Okay? Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind. And it was so.
So what you're saying here is that the days actually happened instead of being actual 24-hour days, were a gajillion years apart.
So where did you hear about that? Because that's actually one of the creation theories. It's called the day-age theory. That a day is not a literal 24 hours, but an age of the earth.
In one of my books.
Yeah. So, but here's the piece that's really important, and then I'm going to tell you. The Bible is not a science textbook, and that creation story, actually both of the creation stories in the beginning there in Genesis, are poems. Do we look at poems and say they're fact? No. It's a way of explaining things. Poems are a way of explaining things from the heart that necessarily can't be put into straight up words. So there's that. Okay. Oh, all right. So there you go, Dad. Michaela read that. And she's giving me bunny ears. So
he's a mutant bunny.
Now I'm a mutant bunny. All right. So Michaela, it is there are lots of different theories for how God created things that actually meld in a bit with science. One that I particularly lean towards is called theistic evolution. And that is that the earth evolved much as the way the theory of evolution, life evolved much the way the theory of evolution tells us it did. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm not.
You're like glaring at me. Much the way evolution says it did, but with intent and purpose and a bit of prodding here and there from God. And it just took billions of years to get us here. Which I kind of like the idea of God taking billions of years to see things come and take care and tend the universe, as opposed to God just going, let it be, and it be. That's to me, for an eternal deity, that just seems lazy. It's more than an almost teenager look, Grandma Lori. It is very much a teenager look. Very much. But yeah, so good question. I am not going to answer your string theory questions on Ask Mike Anything, though, okay? I'm going to need some YouTube videos to help me with that one. All right. What? I'm a pastor, not a physicist. So we've been watching The Big Bang Theory, and Michaela today trots out the dinosaur question, to which I said, come on at 7:00 on Ask Mike Anything and go ahead and ask me that one. I can probably handle that one. And then she starts asking me about string theory because we're watching an episode where Sheldon is breaking up with string theory. And that's not something I could easily explain in the 20 minutes before I came on here. And then she asked me another question, but I can't remember what it was. But I don't think I'm going to answer that here either. All right. So hey, all right. Matt, I'm going to come back to yours. There's somebody on YouTube who I don't know if it's just a troll, somebody messing around, wants to know if I can say their name, and their name is Joe Mama. So I'll say Joe Mama. That's fine. Very nice. All right. Thank you for that. So Matt's question is, did the burning bush actually happen? I was not there, old though I may be. But it is in a section of the Bible that tends to be a little more historical. I'm not going to go so far as to say it is a verifiable fact, but it also does not read like like allegory. So there's that. Cool side note on the burning bush, though, is you can travel. When we traveled to Egypt in 2017, we went to South Sinai, to a town called St. Catherine, where Mount Sinai is. And there is a monastery there, and in a courtyard of this monastery, there is a bush that, at least what we were told by guides and people there, cuttings of it have been taken and cannot be grown anywhere else but there. Monks have reported seeing fire-like light coming from it at night. Whether that is anything or not, I don't know. It was. I take that with the grain of, if not here, then near, when you travel in the Holy Land. But it's a very cool looking bush. They have it roped off. You can't get very near it. So yeah. Leslie, what is my favorite miracle that Jesus performed? I don't have the reaction to the healing miracles that Bree has. She struggles a little more with the healing miracles than I do. I am a fan of the feedings, where Jesus feeds everybody. Makes it very much a gospel of abundance, as opposed to scarcity, which we like to get into a little bit. But let me think. Probably, if I had to pick my favorite miracle that kind of, for me, defines the heart of Jesus, and this is not a joke, would be the wedding at Cana, where he turns water to wine. For the most part, we look at that and we say, well, okay, he just turns water to wine. And on the surface, that's very true. But when he commands the servants to fill the vessels and bring them, the vessels that they're filling are vessels that are used for purification. They are vessels that people, not purification like my hands are dirty, but purification like I need to cleanse my soul, my sin. And having them there was very much an act and understanding of sinfulness of humanity and those kinds of things. And Jesus took that and turned it into the best wine. Jesus took that idea of we need to be constantly examining our guilt, and said, let's party. It is, for me, it gets to the heart of what Jesus is trying to do, is to free us from that guilt, that shame, that we heave and heap on ourselves. So that's, yeah, Cana would be my favorite. Oh, Matt. So it has been a long time since history of Christian thought and practice one. Yeah. Actually, I'm just gonna have to Google, because I can't remember. Oh yeah. Okay. I knew it was something along those lines. So, not so much in the resurrection story, as far as no, you didn't get me. Just don't use Theotokos every day. I can't even. I looked probably 3 or 4 years ago. So Matt was in seminary with me back in the day, and we had history of Christian thought and practice together. And we our one of our I don't remember if it was a group project or if we just did it to be silly, but I brought my guitar to Garrett, and we wrote a song about Theotokos, which is the mother of God. It's largely Eastern Orthodox idea, but love poured into the mother of God, enabling her to love fully in return. Anyway, and that's just Google. But anyway, it was this idea, and we made a song about it, and it was hilarious, and people laughed. This good tension breaker. But Mary and the women were present at the crucifixion and the resurrection, and so they are in the resurrection story, and that's about all the deeper I'm going to dive into that one, Matt. I hope you're doing well. Every once in a while I see a Facebook post from you and Fernando. I liked seeing your posts like from your balcony, and like everybody else is out having kind of a dance party on the balcony during lockdown. Those were fun. So yeah, keep the questions coming. What's in the cup tonight? That is an old fashioned, because I just felt like being an old fashioned today. All right, so let's see what comes from my dad. Granted, the church is people and not just a building, but what have we lost as a church family since the pandemic, and what changes do you see moving forward once we can gather again? So I don't know that we've, for those for whom gathering in the church building is important, it will remain important. I think it has accelerated probably some of the exodus from weekly attendance for some people. For some folks, being able to attend their local church from their living room is going to be something they continue to do. I know for some folks that's a big comfort to be able to do that. But I think what we're going to see, the bigger changes that we're going to see when we go back to in person, and a lot of churches are already, not a lot, but some have already chosen to go back. For us, whether it's St. Matthew's in Cherry Hill or Trinity, I'm fairly certain what we're going to see is the plate will not be passed. For some, singing will come back slowly. Congregational singing will come back slowly. Passing of the peace will probably go by the wayside for a while. We'll still, work at distancing. We'll still largely mask. We'll have hand sanitizer available. I think we're probably going to do less paper bulletins on Sundays, especially for congregations who have projection or video screens. It isn't necessary to have the paper bulletin for people, though I know that's going to feel weird for folks. Communion will be different. I think most places are going to end up sticking with the individually pre-wrapped, pre-packaged cups of juice and little wafer, just to be on the safe side. As more and more people are vaccinated, as hopefully pandemic surges die down, then we'll start to see probably the congregational singing come more. But I think we're going to find that there were things we were doing that were tradition because they were tradition, not because we absolutely need them. I don't see us going back to passing a plate, especially if we find a good way to do an offering within the context of the service, and not just like, yeah, give online. There are ways I think we can do it without having to pass a plate. I think, and I think bulletins, the actual program of the church service, I think will probably fade away. I think we may still have need to have printed calendars or announcements or things for folks for a while, but that wouldn't be something we pass out every Sunday and have that kind of contact with. So there are things that are going to be different. Fellowship is going to be different for a while, but I also my hope is that as we begin to worship in person, we take seriously the reality and the need for the church to be outside its own doors, outside its own walls. Matt Witkowski, welcome. What is a project you've always wanted to do in a church but just haven't been able to do yet for one reason or another? There are lots. Let's see. I would love to get a good regular open mic kind of night going for poetry and music in a church setting, not necessarily a sanctuary setting, but just as a community place for people to come and express themselves in word and song or skit. We've done poetry nights at different churches in the Detroit area and open mic nights that have been very good. So I'd love to see something like that happen. I would love to see, in the context of Trinity, coming in, I would love to see in the church building. I would love to see a lot of Pride Month activities. So like June is Pride Month. I would love to see big gatherings and events and virtually anything we can do to help support the LGBTQ community and give them a place that feels safe and welcome. That's a big one that's on my heart, and I don't know exactly what that would look like. When it comes to Grand Rapids, I'm going to have to get my bearings and figure some of that out. But for sure, that's on my list. Yeah, good question. And I'll make a list as things pop in my head too. We'll get to work. All right. Other questions? What determines whether you wear a vestment for a Sunday service? Well, in general, for me, 99.9% of the time, I'm not wearing a vestment. If it is a super serious service, like a funeral or a wedding where that becomes a piece that the family likes, I'll wear a robe and stole or whatever. But typically, in my current appointments, typically it'll be, jeans and a shirt, polo shirt, sometimes button down with a tie, but nothing too fancy. I am more myself when I can be comfortable. Now, I mentioned at the top of the episode that I did a wedding yesterday. And on Sunday, you may have seen I wore a clerical collar. I'll do that on occasion. Sometimes because I'm wearing a T-shirt, but I still wanna have some semblance of seriousness and authority in what I'm saying. I did that, my collar and a stole for the wedding, to bring a little more solemnity to the proceedings. But originally, vestments, robes, that kind of thing, were there to obscure the person of the priest or the pastor, so that people didn't get distracted during mass. So these days, and especially in more Protestant circles, there's not the worry about obscuring, and we tend to, whether they're in a robe or not, we tend to be more focused on the work of the priest or the pastor. Matt Witkowski says that they've had a booth at Pride Parade and started doing it right before. That's awesome, man. We'll keep stuff up. I'm excited. Leslie, out of all the stockings, Brie Meiji, what is your favorite? I cannot choose. I just can't. I love them all. I know all the work that went into them. It makes me sad that they are now taken down and packed in a box. It makes me sad that I have no idea where we're going to put them in the new house. It makes me sad. We'll figure, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out, but I love all of them. Yeah. And yeah, she just amazes me with all of them. I couldn't pick. And they always, it's weird. Like, I know they're coming. I know at Christmas, I'm always going to open at least one stocking. Most of the time it's 4 that she's made me throughout the year. But she always surprises me. So always surprises me. I never know. Even if I've suggested once in a while, hey, this might be a cool stocking. She always plays it off, and I never know what's coming. So, but I love them all. Yeah. Good question. Oh, I was kind of hoping Joe Mama would ask a couple more questions, but apparently Joe Mama's no longer watching. All right, you guys keep asking, typing in your questions. I'm gonna take one of my question cards here. Would you rather have unlimited sushi for life or unlimited tacos for life? Now, you need to understand this is a difficult question for me because I am an avid lover of both sushi and tacos. But it has to be, if we're talking here, it has to be great. Well, it doesn't say I can't have the other. I would go with unlimited sushi because it tends to be a whole lot more expensive than tacos. But at the same time, sushi fills me up a whole lot quicker than tacos do. So I still go unlimited sushi. Thoughts on the Derek Chauvin trial now that it's in the hands of the jury? I I'm not a fan of abuse of authority, of police brutality, of anybody being hurt or killed, really for any reason. But what we have seen, what has become glaringly obvious, is that we have a policing problem. I have never. I am a white male. I am a straight white male. I have never had a serious issue with the police. I've never had to worry that I was going to get pulled over and do anything but get a ticket. But I have friends who had to learn from their parents and had to teach their own kids how to survive a traffic stop. We have seen, just over the course of the last week or so, babies, 13 and 20-year-old, over the course of this last year. I don't even want to. It has to stop. It has to stop. It is, yeah, it has to stop. Derek Shovin, his lawyers, from what I have seen, they did everything they could to try and place the blame somewhere else. I hope and I pray that the jury knows where the blame goes. More than that, I hope and I pray that we in our communities and throughout our country will do better. I know police officers and sheriff's deputies who are good people. Some of them are very good friends. Most of those would agree with what I'm saying, that things need to change. And I really hope they do. I am I know how my heart breaks every time I see the headline. I can't imagine how it is for young people of color and their parents not knowing if they're going to get pulled over for having an air freshener or a broken taillight. It is a horrible way for people to have to think and exist, and we have to change that. Those are my thoughts, Dad. We have to change that. Yeah. Other questions? All right, I'm going to lighten it up with this next card. All right. Do you have a favorite t-shirt? If so, what's on it or what does it say? I do have a favorite t-shirt. I'm currently wearing it. It is my Hard Rock Cafe Miami t-shirt. Now, It is not my favorite t-shirt because it says Hard Rock Cafe Miami. It is my favorite t-shirt because it's kind of this charcoal gray black, but the material it's made out of is really light and thin and kind of stretchy. And I just really like it. It's comfortable and lightweight. I think I have one other shirt like this that I got from the Animal Kingdom at Disney the last time we went. So, yeah, I'm always on the lookout for t-shirts that are made of this kind of material. They're just super duper comfortable, and I don't care much what they say on them. I've tried looking to see if I can just get plain ones that I could then like put stuff on myself, but I just haven't. All right, let's see. David Weber, you're always good for a question. Here we go. Using the example of Mary and her immaculate conception, why does the Bible seem to teach that asking a woman for consent is optional? So I'm trying hard to think of, like, there's wives submit to your husbands, and that may be what you're getting at there. But before we get there, so what you're talking about, David, is the virgin birth. The Immaculate Conception is something different. The Immaculate Conception from Catholic theology is the idea that Mary herself was conceived sinlessly, so that she could carry the Christ child. So there's a difference between Immaculate Conception and virgin birth. But anyway, using the virgin birth as an example where Mary gave consent. Why does the Bible seem to teach that asking a woman for consent is optional? I don't think that it does. If it seems that way, it's more than likely because it's being twisted that way. The wives submit to your husbands out of Ephesians is probably, as I said, where you're sniffing that at. But I don't necessarily think that's what that's saying. Though I know people have been taught otherwise. And the reason, so the why to it is because male dominated society has wanted to continue to dominate. So yeah, I realize that, Dave. It's you learn something, right? All right, Jane. White privilege and supremacy have roots in Christianity and still find a home in organized religion. What action should a predominantly white community like Trinity take? That's a great question. First, in my mind, the first thing that comes to my mind is solidarity. Is standing with people of color, and not just people of color, but anybody that winds up on under the boot of the oppressor, whoever that may be, standing with people. There was I want to say back, they did 70 plus days of marches in Detroit after George Floyd was killed. It probably went even longer than that. And there were times when they thought, when the organizers thought there was going to be issues from police, that myself and other clergy contacted them and said, "Hey, we'll come and march with you. We'll wear our collars and we'll try and stand stand in between, right? Stand in the gap. So that's one of those actions that a predominantly white community like Trinity can take. When we know there are marches, rallies, things of that nature, we can go and be a part, lend our voice, lend our bodies to that march, to that movement. We can do all the traditional things like pray and write letters and advocate in how we interact with people. We can have the tough conversations when we find white supremacists, because us white folks having conversations with white supremacists about the evil of white supremacy will have a better chance of breaking through some of those barriers. We can have those conversations, but the other piece is the solidarity of standing up and being there, marching, going to the rallies, doing what we can to let people know they're not alone, and to use the privilege that we have for others. So, Leslie wants to know, what is one thing that I won't eat? I mean, I'm pretty much game to try anything, at least once. Off the top of my head, probably snails would top my list as something I probably wouldn't eat. Yeah. So that'd be about it. All right, keep them coming. From the question cards, you have $100,000. You have to donate or create a charity. What do you do? I am not one for reinventing the wheel. If I had $100,000 right now that I had to donate to a charity or create a charity, I would donate, and I would donate to the Hope Clinic in Ypsilanti. They are not advertisers; they are friends, and they do amazing work. They are multi-faith, multiple branches of Christianity. They get medical, dental care for people who have no insurance or are underinsured. They have laundry facilities that don't cost people money. They just have to sign up and they can go do their laundry. They have social workers. They do so much good for people. And I've been in ministry for 22 years. And I don't think I've seen a single organization do as much good for the poor and underprivileged as I've seen the Hope Clinic do. And that's they don't pay for advertising. That's just my honest belief about that ministry. So, how sad was I when I learned that my dad was no longer sporting a mullet? I was not sad at all. No sadness. Shocked. Shocked would be the word, but also very, very glad. Because I'm fairly certain if you had let that grow out much more, it was going to come alive and eat you. So, yeah, shocked, but glad, not sad. So here's a question for my my Grand Rapids people out there, if you're still there. And you don't have to answer this here. You can if you want. What are some things that are going to be must do's for me, and my family when we get to Grand Rapids? What are some things that I'm not going to want to miss this summer with my kids, as I'm working with them to help them to feel at home in Grand Rapids? Matt, yes. If I if I had an additional 100,000, community ministries would be on the list for sure. Maybe I'd split it. Maybe I'd split the 100 and do 50-50, because I believe you're doing good work too. Absolutely. So yeah, so a lot of folks have been asking, as I've been doing transition meetings, about what are things we can do to help your family feel at home. And I'm just wondering, what are some things that are going to help my family and my kiddos be like, hey, this is an amazing, help them to feel connected, feel rooted a little more. David Weber, here we go. What's the best way to talk with a Christian who doesn't believe that mental health is anything but some sort of demonic possession? So it's if I thought they could be reasoned with, okay, there are Christians who can't be reasoned with. So I'm going to say that right there. If this is a person that can be reasoned with, then I would start to talk about. I would come at it from a historical perspective, right? That historically, when we didn't understand really mental health, when we didn't understand the mind was a thing, that could break down, that could have things wrong with it, or things that could be treated. We called it what we thought. Just like we looked at the sun and thought the sun was a god, or the moon, or the rain. We look at things and we try to make determination without understanding. And throughout history, then, as history progresses, demonic possession, as we begin to understand the mind and be able to treat the mind, becomes less and less the diagnosis. Is that saying that demonic oppression or possession can't exist? I'm not going to go that far. But by and large, what we see is a mental health issue. And I would walk through the history of our understanding as human beings. There was a time when everybody thought the earth was flat, and part of that time is now, apparently. But there was a time when we thought the universe, the earth was the center of the universe. We know it's not. So we learn things, we grow, and calling things demonic that we didn't understand was just one of those things. We did the same thing with Native Americans when white people drove them off their land. If Native Americans worshipped at a certain lake or a certain mountain, they worshipped their gods there. You will find where we have things named Devil's Lake, Devil's Tower. We do that because we don't understand it. We make it demonic. We make it evil because we don't understand it, because it doesn't fit into what we think is right. Beth wants to know if we're going to need help packing and cleaning. Cleaning, probably. And church folks are going to be like, the carpets are going to be changed and stuff's going to be painted. So that might be some help they need there. Packing for us, I don't know. I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay. I'll let you know though. Thank you. Yeah. Stephen Murray says that Frederick Meyer Gardens is their favorite place. It has outdoor players, indoor seasonal offerings. Oh, that sounds good. If I wasn't a pastor, what line of work would you most likely be in? I would probably still want. I would probably still write. I would want to write. I like writing. Most of my writing these days is sermons and papers for school, but I definitely want to write. And the more I, I had a sermon a few weeks ago where I talked about my friend Josh, who was a pastor and is now a social worker, and finding great fulfillment in that and helping people. And I feel like that might be an area I'd be interested in, maybe. Not, I'd have to do some research into that, but for me, it's always about helping people. So, Matt Wachowski says outdoor concerts at Meyer Gardens. Yep. Walk the boardwalk in Grand Haven. Okay. Ride bikes, White Pine Trail. Michaela has been asking me for a mountain bike, so that might be a thing. Outdoor food and music at the dam in Rockford. Watching salmon jump at the Rockford Dam. Ooh, that sounds like fun. John Ball Zoo. The kids are excited about that. All right. Is Whitecaps, is that like a minor league team? I like going to minor league games. They tend to be more fun and less expensive. Sounds good. All right. Other questions for me tonight? We're coming up on the hour. We got about 8 minutes left. But if we got good questions rolling, I'll go a little longer too. All right. So Beth wants to know, how do I already have Grand Rapids people? We do. This is the first time we've ever had a pastoral transition happen this way, but they're doing what's called active transition. And what that means is I get to have contact, and Bree gets to have contact with people, the current pastor, leadership, other folks at the new appointment prior to us showing up. It used to be you really didn't. You showed up on July 1 and that was about it. But active transition gives us an opportunity to at least have a little bit more of a grasp of what's going on before we get there. So it's not as big a shock for folks. And so I have been, when I can, attending. I did part of a staff meeting over Zoom. I've done SPRC over Zoom. This week I get to do SPRC, a bit of SPRC trustees and finance, I think, over Zoom. I think those are going to work out. So yeah. The reason it's not, you're asking why isn't it happening for us in Ypsilanti? It's because we don't know who the pastor is going to be yet for St. Matthew's and for Cherry Hill. The pastor for First has been named and introduced, Reverend Dr. Don Ferris McCann, and he, if I have memory serves, he and his wife are going to be in town sometime this week to tour the church and look at homes and that kind of thing. But we don't know who we're getting yet for St. Matthew's or Cherry Hill. When they do make that announcement, whatever time is left, we will do as active a transition for them as we can too. So, but we don't know yet. Has not been announced as far as I know. SPRC hasn't been called to set a meeting to do a Zoom with a new pastor. As far as when we'll know, so just to give you a little bit of an idea, a friend of mine who I went to licensing school with, real good pastor, still doesn't have an appointment, and has been told that he might find out the end of May, which is really pushing it. I know. It is a tricky process, finding the right pastors to go with the right churches. So, Beth, I mentioned that to him, and I like, if I could pick, that would probably be it. But yeah, but I don't get to pick. I don't get to say boo about any of that. But I know. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a difficult process. I don't ever want to be a bishop. I don't ever want to be a district superintendent. I don't ever want to be on the appointive cabinet. I don't want to have to make those calls. Oh, there you go. That's a great question, Beth. I think I've mentioned this twice already in this episode. Who's your favorite couple you married in 2021? Hands down, it's you and Alan. That was a lot of fun. Apparently, I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but Janice from a couple doors down watched the wedding from like her kitchen window. My mom watched from her bedroom window, and Michaela apparently was standing on the fence the whole time. I didn't notice till after, but watching over the fence. So it had a bigger audience than you thought. Yeah, Janice Joy. Yep. So yeah, of course, 2021, hands down, you guys. So, all right, Dave. As the Bible is not actually inerrant, I'll use different orders of creation. Yeah. How does one who doesn't have a Bible degree know what parts are the ones to use as literal truth versus a myth to use as a basis for morality? All right. So we can't first off, we can't treat the Bible like a textbook at all. It is not a history book in the traditional sense. It is not a textbook. It is a collection of stories, a collection of oral traditions, for the most part, like up until you get to the letters, the epistles, the stuff that come after the Gospels. Up until that point, it is largely a collection of oral tradition, stories that people told and retold and retold and retold. So it is my father-in-law. My father-in-law had a phrase he used to say a lot. He's a United Methodist pastor. It's the story that is salvific, or it is the story that saves, the story that teaches us. Not it, baby. And so there's that piece to it. So. And you don't necessarily need to have a Bible degree to know what parts are more historical or not. More of a even more of an understanding of literature would help. But here it takes study. And you're right, Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1 and 2, with the different accounts of creation. When it takes digging. It takes asking the question and looking for the answer. The problem that comes is when people are like, well, this is what it says, it's the Bible. So obviously how I read it and interpret it is exactly what's what. And that's not the case. When you read, even in English, you read Genesis 1, you get the feeling of poetry. It doesn't rhyme, and it doesn't rhyme in Hebrew, but it's still, there's a refrain. It was evening and it was morning the first day. It was evening and it was morning the second day. And it was good, and it was good, and it was good. When you're in those, when you see those things, those are clues as to the type of literature that you're reading. When something reads much more like a story, that has characters and dialogue and those pieces, you tend to get more of the, okay, there's an arc here. It's telling a story of how people have interacted and understood God, or understood their faith. And when you get into the epistles, then when you get into the letters, you're tending to deal with a specific person writing to a specific group of people to deal with a specific issue at hand. And sometimes we get clues based on how they use and understand other scriptures as to how the original hearer may have understood it. It does take a lot of study. So part of the issue, when the Reformation happened and Martin Luther comes out with sola scriptura, which is scripture alone, that's all we need, is that he's coming from, like, he has this tradition of teaching within the Catholic Church that he's been brought up in. He taught in essentially seminary. He had this education. But when the Bible is translated into vernacular languages, the languages that common people speak and common people learn how to read and can read, it takes on that idea of sola scriptura, takes on this reality that just because you can read it doesn't mean you can understand it. And so you have to study, you have to dig deeper, you have to ask the questions. But it's not just Bible degrees. You can understand a little more, at least what you're looking at with understanding literature and history. But you have to go into history. You go into history, and you look at the reality. The reason whoever eventually compiled Genesis included two stories of creation, two different stories of creation, two different creation myths, was because predominantly amongst the tribes, there were those two creation stories. Those were the two dominant stories that were told throughout the tribes. And so they just both got put in there. And you see that there are other places where that happens. There's a dominant idea in one part of the country, and in another part, it's a different idea. Check out the raisin cake controversy in Scripture. It's all about geography. But the one story, in particular, Genesis 1, when it's talking about God creating and having dominion over these things and creating them good, There are some corollaries to the Egyptian creation myths, or creation stories, that people coming out of exile, or coming out of slavery in Egypt. This is the story that's told. Their God is the dominant God. Their God, So those are pieces of what happens, and it does take study. Not necessarily a Bible degree, but it takes study and a willingness to say that my English translation is not the be all end all, and that just because I can read the words and think I know what they mean doesn't mean there isn't something I'm missing. Yeah. But there is sufficient, like, I don't have to think Genesis 1 is absolute fact for me to understand that the original tellers of that story were telling that story so that people understood the greatness of God's power, the greatness of the power, in that case, of Elohim, the greatness of God's power. So it is, it's one of those pieces where, like with poetry, it's what is the intention? What is the teller want? How does the teller want the hearer to respond? What are they trying to evoke? And that's what you got to figure out with the poetry. But it doesn't mean it's not useful for morality just because it isn't literal. This literally happened. It doesn't have to be a fact for it to have an impact on morality. All right. We are over our hour. It was great talking with y'all. Weber, as always, great questions. Everybody else, great questions too. Weber just makes me sweat a little bit sometimes. So thanks for joining me. We'll be back next week. Fun with Faith, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. We have this week and next week with Fun with Faith, and then we're taking the summer off, so we can pack and clean and do other things. So just understand that we will be back in the fall. But this week and next week, and then that's done. I'll keep doing Ask Mike Anything as long as you guys keep coming with questions, and because this is a good mental health thing for me. So keep it up, and love you guys, and we will see you next time. Peace.